Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you in Dublin and to join with you on this, really important work around, certainly in terms of Ireland getting the UN Convention ratified, but also to be meeting up with colleagues from Northern Ireland, who we've been working with for some time now on the convention. Just by way of some background context, there's been a few twists and turns in the UK in terms of the convention. The UK government ratified the convention back in 2009, and the first report was published in 2011. We were expecting the first examination, to then follow a couple of years later, but partly due to, I think, the UN committee had quite a backlog of examinations to do, but also because a number of disabled people's organisations in the UK approached the UN committee to, under the optional protocol, to undertake an inquiry into the impact of welfare reform and the austerity programme on disabled people in the UK. That took some time, and the UN committee's report was published, I think it was the end of last year, beginning of this year, and the committee did find that there were grave and systemic violations of disabled people's rights under the convention, particularly around articles related to people's social security and standard of living. So that process held into the normal examination process up. So we found out last summer that the actual examination would take place in August this year. So having been on hold for a while, we were then struggling to catch up then and kind of get the report written and do the engagement and then go out to Geneva. So that's kind of the background to where things are at in the UK. So in terms of writing the report, we worked together with Disability Rights UK and also Inclusion Scotland. And we received funding from the Equality and Human Rights Commission and also the Scottish Human Rights Commission to actually engage with disabled people in England, Scotland and Wales and to produce alternative reports. And that funding was really critical in terms of being able to do a proper programme of engagement. And also put the time and effort that was needed into producing what are quite detailed reports. I should also say that as well as the reports produced by Inclusion Scotland, Disability Wales and Disability Rights UK, a number of other organisations also submitted reports to the UN committee, as is their right. I'm not sure how do I click this, sorry. Yes. I've done it. Oh, it's that one there, is it? Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry about that. So in terms of the report itself, we structured the report around the articles of the convention. And of course, there's additional complexity in the UK because of devolution. So as well as addressing issues that are the responsibility of the UK government, we also wanted to make sure that the devolved governments also, were aware of their own responsibilities and sort of weren't let off the hook when the UN committee did its examination of the UK government. And so we made sure that we produced questions and issues that would be targeted at those devolved governments. In terms of the engagement, we involved a range of organisations. We produced an online survey across the three nations. We received nearly 500 responses. Around just over 70 of those were from disabled people in Wales. We ran 13 engagement events, roadshows, across the three nations. Around 400 disabled people attending those. And in Wales, we ran 3. In Cardiff, the capital city, Committee in West Wales and also in North Wales, which again reached around 70 people. But we also held meetings with some specific organisations, because not all disabled people are going to be able to get to events, and we particularly wanted to hear the experiences of people who are disabled people who are even more at the edge and marginalised. So, for example, people with mental health conditions who might be in institutions, refugees and asylum seekers, for example. So we did our best to make sure that we tried to capture as many voices as possible. So we submitted our reports at the beginning of the year, and then the next step was to prepare for the examination for the pre-sessional working group with the committee in Geneva, which was held on the 13th of March. Quite a number of organisations indicated their intention to go out to Geneva, and altogether I think there were about 20 of us in total in the delegation from about 8 different organisations representing the 4 devolved nations, grassroots activists, organisations representing black people who experience mental health issues, deaf organisations and others. So it was quite a complex a range of organisations, and quite a lot of work needed to be done in terms of negotiation, prioritising what were the key issues that we wanted to get across to the committee, dividing up the time. We were fortunate because the UK was allocated a 3-hour slot with a committee. Normally, I think it's about an hour and a half. But even so, that 3 hours really whizzed by. And, of course, we also had to take account of the fact that the committee would be asking us questions as well. So it was quite a feat of negotiation and needing the art of compromise to make sure that quite a disparate range of organisations were able to get their points across. So the point we're at now, we had the the pre-sessional hearing in March. That influenced the UN committee producing their list of issues, which went out to the UK government. We were pleased that the work that we'd done in the pre-sessional hearing had a bearing on the UN committee in terms of the issues that they have brought up with the UK government. So the next step now is the UK government responding to the list of issues. We've got a small matter of a general election in the UK, which has kind of put a bit of a spanner in the works, but they're going to be producing their response in July. We've got the opportunity to put in our own report and then go out to Geneva in August before the examination of the government. And have another hearing with the UN committee, again to give us another chance of influencing the examination itself. I've got a few photos to share of you at the time that we were in Geneva. We had the benefit of Juan's time before we went to the UN to prepare for the session. So you can see us there hard at work, working out who was going to say what and who was going to do what. And then there's photos of us looking a bit relieved after the session itself, which was a closed session, so we weren't allowed to tweet or Facebook or take photos during the session. And me and my colleague with a Welsh flag, any excuse to get the Welsh dragon into the UN. And I've got a photo of the full delegation, so you can see we were a large group, but it was tremendous the way that we all worked together to put our points across and really truly represent the voice of disabled people in the UK. We used this opportunity as an awareness-raising exercise within the UK and certainly in Wales. We publicised the visit to Geneva in social media. We gave presentations to all party groups. That was at the Houses of Parliament, the Scottish Parliament, and also the National Assembly for Wales. We've done a lot of engagement with stakeholders, including, of course, disabled people. And in Wales, we used this opportunity to influence the review of the Framework for Action on Independent Living, which is the way that the Welsh Government implements the Convention in Wales. And as well as producing various articles and blogs. I suppose reflecting back on the experience today, and we've still got a little way to go, as perhaps I've given you a bit of a flavour, it's a very complex and resource-intensive process. Getting to grips with the convention, the different articles, gathering evidence, engaging with disabled people. So planning ahead is vital, and having a timeline about when, meeting the different deadlines that are set out by the UN committee, and also to be able to really and truly consult and engage with disabled people. Collaboration is vital. It was a massive exercise for us in the UK. And I think, inevitably in any movement there are tensions, and sometimes those tensions did come to the fore. But I think being in Geneva, being in the UN, really concentrated our minds, and we realised that this was something bigger than our individual organisations, so that we really had to represent disabled people to the best of our ability. And I think overall maximise the opportunity, because the UN Convention puts the human rights of disabled people centre stage, and is a real opportunity to raise, on the back of it, raise other issues around policy and legislation with government, with local authorities, with health boards. So as well as the actual process itself, and we hope that we'll get a good set of concluding observations out of the examination that we can continue to lobby our governments on. I think it's given a massive boost to disabled people to realise that we are part of an international community, that our rights do matter, and that there is nothing about us without us. Diolch yn fawr.